Yes, better, a little better, a little better. Better. Is that about right? Good? Really good? Si, senor. Okay. It's funny that you should say si, senor, because our featured guest and meditation instructor is from Argentina, where they speak Spanish. So any Spanish speakers out there, remember to talk to Gerardo afterwards. But what you all below may not know is that what's above you is one heck of a lot of people. I am so glad that you all are here, and I want to welcome everyone. My name is Owsley Brown, and I'm connected to all of this as one of the organizers of the Festival of Faiths, and we have named this year's festival Sacred Silence, Pathway to Compassion. And what we mean by that is that maybe there's a relationship between silence and compassion. So how do you go about establishing that? How do you convince people that that is maybe so? And so what we decided to do was try to look into the world where people have had a long history of connecting those two things. And one of the places where that's been connected for a really long time is the Buddhist world, and also specifically the Tibetan Buddhist world, which is an interesting thing to think about for this city this week, because at the end of the week we have the most important figure in the Tibetan Buddhist world coming to our city. Do you all know who that is? Do you all up there know who's coming here this weekend? Dalai Lama. Yep, big deal. He's a big deal. He won the Nobel Peace Prize. He's no small dude. And he's serious about silence and its relationship to compassion. So our program is intended to try and help people understand what that world for the Dalai Lama, what's kind of behind that world. You know, where is he coming from? And so the man that's going to lead our discussion this morning is, we are lucky ducks. He is as good as it gets in the meditation world, and I know that because I've had the incredible good fortune of studying under him as a student. There's a big kind of thing in the Tibetan Buddhist world to do with students and teachers. And even though he wouldn't say this, he's been a real teacher to me. And he's taught me a lot about meditation. And he's also spent a whole lot of time with the Dalai Lama. He translates, because the Dalai Lama travels all over the world, so he needs translators wherever he goes. And he translates in all of Latin America for the Dalai Lama, and has for I don't know how long time, dozen years, maybe more, 15, 20 years. Let's just do a few quick things. Any cell phones that are on, let's make sure we turn those off. Let's see, at the end, we're going to try to get some questions in. So if you have any questions, we're hopefully going to have microphones around, and you can speak into the microphones, and we can have a little Q&A with Gerardo. We're going to start with silence, and we're going to end with silence, and Gerardo's graciously agreed to help us with that. And let me just give you a few little quick additional bits of background on Gerardo. As I said, he's from Buenos Aires, Argentina, huge city. If any of you haven't been there, it's a place worth going, and amazing that he's come all this way. He was born into a Christian family. He was trained in university to be an engineer, and he was an engineer. He worked for the Ford Motor Company, just like we have Ford Motor Company here in Louisville, Kentucky. They got Ford Motor Company down there in Argentina. And in the early 1970s, when he was on a little break from his job, he went to India, and he met there the whole community of Tibetans who were leaving Tibet because they had to get out of there, because it was a tough situation in Tibet at that time. And so, lucky Gerardo, he got to learn a whole lot about Tibetan Buddhism directly from the great masters. And he lived there for 15 years, and he learned a whole lot. So this is his third time to Louisville. I'm so happy that he's here. I'm so happy you all are here. Thanks to you and him, we've got a program. Yay. And without further ado, let me welcome to the stage Gerardo Abboud. Will you help me welcome him?
So we'll start with 3 minutes of silence, please. First of all, I'm so happy to be back in Louisville, and Owsley has been so kind to not only to invite me, but also to give this amazing introduction about myself. He's an old friend, so. So we'll talk about meditation. Meditation, you know, is nowadays it's a word that is so commonly used. There's so many kinds of meditation. And sometimes some of the meditations that are done and the way that people understand it to be is connected to just a state of relaxation in which then the mind is calm, quiet, and there's not much emphasis on the clarity of the mind. That means to say that you might be very relaxed, very quiet, but you don't really know exactly what's going on there. There are these types of meditations, and maybe they do serve some purpose of tranquilizing one's mind and becoming relaxed after a class of yoga or after some kind of stress in the job or whatever. There are other types of meditation which involve thinking. In Buddhism, these also have a big role. They're called like analytical meditations, in which then you contemplate with thought. You start to think and reflect on some kind of something that through logic and through reasoning you are aiming to understand. In general, in Buddhism, the main objective of any Buddhist practice is finally to understand, to know, and to finally realize the nature of reality. Nature of reality means not only the nature of the whole world that we perceive. What is this world that we are always perceiving and with which we are always relating or interacting? But also the nature of ourselves, because it is considered that we don't really know who we are. And of course, we know who we are as long as somebody tells us who we are, and that's how religions approach this issue. And they give us some kind of answer about what we are. So Christianity will have their own description of what we are, sons of gods and so forth. Other types of religion, Islam, and Judaism, and Hinduism, and also Buddhism, they will give us a description of what we are. But that does not mean that we know exactly what we are as a complete, total, direct experience. And in Buddhism, that's considered to be one of the major obstacles that we have for being free, for not experiencing anymore any kind of suffering, and for developing all kinds of good qualities like loving kindness, compassion, and so forth. That type of ignorance, which is at the root of our being, is something that we never address. You usually are born, and we live and try to be happy in the best way possible and try to avoid suffering. And all of us do that, even animals. Everybody has that as a kind of something that marks the type of experience that we do. But we never really manage to find full happiness or full peace and to avoid all kinds of sufferings or any kind of suffering. Some sufferings, of course, we avoid them, but there's something that is recurrent, and then again we suffer in one way, whether it is a mere insatisfaction, frustration, fears, or depressions, or even like gross sufferings like physical sufferings and death, old age, and so forth. And all this happens, according to Buddhism, because of that basic fact that we do not really know exactly what we are. The example of Siddhartha, in our case, that prince who abandoned his reign in the look for truth. And he abandoned that because he could not live accepting these kind of conditionings that we do. We all accept these conditionings. We think, okay, this is our human nature. It just comes along with our package as being human. So it's such a big issue to try to understand what we are. So we leave it aside, and we are mostly involved with trying to be happy. The thing is that maybe we will never manage to find that total happiness in that way, unless we completely destroy that type of unknowing ignorance of what we really are. And according to what Siddhartha, that prince, found after his practices through over 6 years, meditation mainly, is that basically all of us are like perfect beings. That is, the nature of our being is totally perfect. It has complete and perfect all the qualities of infinite compassion, infinite love, infinite empathy, infinite wisdom, and so forth. But all these qualities, which is what we really are covered now by certain veils of emotions, afflictive emotions, the veils also of ignorance and cognition, which can be removed because these veils are not part of our being. The purpose of meditation in Buddhism, the main purpose of meditation, is to cut through all the different levels of, like the onion, different levels of psychological and different aspects of our minds, and really go to the core of our being. And of course, meditation has also other purposes, also within Buddhism. But the main objective of the whole Buddhist path is to unveil that kind of mystery of what we really are. And we base our path in the trust that people like Buddha Shakyamuni, who was the first Buddha, the Buddha who taught all this system, and millions of people who followed the path and could confirm what he taught, they found that we can know that state of reality, that basic, the natural state of reality, the natural state of what we really are. And what they found is that it cannot be described in words, and it cannot also be thought with thoughts, because it is something that is beyond thinking, and it's also beyond words. It is a non-conceptual type of state. Yet, that does not mean that we cannot know it. Unlike the way that we usually know things, then we need some different approach to know that basic nature of our being. We usually know things through words and concepts and study. We go to universities, schools, and so forth, and you students know that very well. And everything that we incorporate in terms of knowledge is through concepts and through words. That is the conceptual knowledge we build is based on one concept and another concept and how they interrelate, and then we add more concepts, and then we create something new from something that was not there before. I was not an engineer before I started my career, and then after so many years of study, I became an engineer. Something was created where it was not there before. That can happen in the knowledge, that can happen in the conceptual knowledge. And we can use conceptual knowledge during this analytical meditation to a great extent, and with a lot of benefit also, because it can guide us towards it can give us an orientation towards the real unmistaken goal that we have to discover, but not through thoughts and words. We have to discover it with some kind of cognition or cognizance that is beyond words and thoughts. So therefore, we cannot go the whole path in Buddhism just relying on analytical meditation alone. We have to go into the contemplative tradition, a way in which we can teach our minds to know beyond thought and know beyond words, know beyond description. Just know as a real, true, genuine experience, which then cannot be even put into words and also cannot be thought about. That can be done. Of course, Buddha, when he taught his path, he said something that is quite inspiring in some way, in the sense that he said that we have to question all his teaching, and we have to question whatever he says. That it's not really so helpful if we just believe it because such a great being said it, or Buddha said it, so it's enough. We've been doing that all our lives with so many things without really putting them into analysis. So he said you should completely deal with my teaching as a jeweler who's brought some piece of metal and that he has to buy as gold. So he will burn it, and we'll see the color of the flame. He will rub it and see what kind of residue comes and so forth. And once he is convinced that it is gold, then he accepts it. That is done through analytical meditation. But it can also be done with a little bit of analytical meditation and basically with contemplative practice, which is the main subject that we're going to do now. Because there are teachings in Buddhism of all kinds, and there are many kinds of meditations in Buddhism also, not only analytical or contemplative, there are also visualizations, so many, it can be very complex. The reason being that we are very complex beings. We are, in our present state, we're full of all kinds of things happening in our minds, which cover our basic nature. The first thing that we have to deal with when we start to meditate is thoughts. We are addicted to thoughts. It is really like an addiction. There's one thought after the other, and another one after that one, and we spend all our day thinking. Do you realize that we're all the time thinking? And actually, of course, thought is very useful when you have to think about something. But so many times we don't really need to think about something, and still our minds are churning all kinds of stories and things, which the worst part of it is that we are not even aware that that's going on. And that is called distraction. We are most of the time distracted. We are addicted to distraction. It's like some kind of company that we've developed in all our years of life. that keeps us some noise going on in our minds that for some strange reasons makes us feel that we are not alone, that we are kind of, there's some kind of companion there that is giving us something or other. And when you start to think about it, it's totally useless. I mean, distraction is not thinking. I'm not talking about thinking can be useful. Distraction is really like a big obstacle. And in our Western cultures, distraction sometimes is approached as a problem, but only as an obstacle, because then you need more time to study the same thing, because your mind goes away and then you have to bring it. So in schools, maybe they say, okay, just concentrate and, don't be so distracted. But it doesn't really have such an importance in terms of our well-being, and in terms also of, after finding that well-being, being able to express without so many kind of limitations our basic qualities of loving kindness, compassion, empathy towards ourselves and towards others. Distraction is really diminishing the brightness of our cognizance in such a way, is very strongly diminishing that brightness. And we need to cultivate that clarity of mind. Our minds are lucid by nature. Our minds know, and they are clear if we allow them to be clear. And for that whole process in which the aim is to know, or for the mind to know its own nature, the basic nature of itself without any kind of distortion, which is that perfect state that I mentioned before, which is that perfect state that Buddha taught. That state lies within us. And the only thing that can know that state is our minds, not our body or our speech. Mind is the ruler. Mind is the one that really can liberate us also, because it is mind that is now not free. And since mind is not free, we are also not free. We and mind, we cannot divide that. So in order to reach that type of non-conceptual level, we need a new type of approach, a new type of technique. We cannot rely on books and learning alone. We need a technique that can teach us, and can teach particularly our minds, educate our minds just in such a way that it will start to release this grip of concept, and slowly letting go of that concept enter by itself in that state of non-concept. That non-conceptual state of our minds is none other than what we call the Buddha nature. Buddha nature means that perfect state. Of course, that perfect state is not something that only belongs to Buddhists, not at all. Buddhists don't have a copyright on that. That is the natural state of reality. It is the absolute state of all of us as human beings, also of animals, of any being that has a consciousness, that can feel, that can know, that has sensations, and so forth. So Buddhism just is kind of like an invitation. If you really want to find permanent happiness and well-being, and you really want to find the truth, well, here is one method. As there may be other methods also in the different spiritual traditions that are aiming also to the same thing. In our case, then, well, we are talking about Buddhism, and the main technique that will make us and transform us from our present conditions of limited human beings into full, complete, unlimited beings, which is that state of enlightened, innate enlightenment, or Buddhahood, is non-distraction, is meditation. It is said that non-distraction is the path that have treaded all Buddhas of the past, through which they became enlightened. And non-distraction is what is making now people who to become Buddhas, and also non-distraction is that which will enlighten Buddhas in the future. So non-distraction is something that we really have to take into consideration as something really important to take care of. And so the practice that we will do today is a practice that will deal with calming our minds. Our minds need to be calm and also need to be clear. And both of these are equally important. In fact, clarity may be more important, because it is within clarity that lucidity, that cognitive quality of our minds, that cognizance, where we will find our nature. But that cognizance, in a place where there is no stability, is very weak, is very feeble. The text, they put an example of the flame of a candle. A candle, if it is put in a place with a lot of wind, even if the flame is good, it will not be able to illuminate. But if it's put in a place without wind and the flame is very small, like the cheap candles sometimes we buy, very small kind of flame, it also doesn't illuminate. So we need both. We need a good flame, clarity, and we also need like the absence of the wind of distraction, the wind of thoughts. Thoughts in themselves, well, that is, things are like that. Our mind thinks. That's the nature of things. No problem. Heat, fire heats. That's the nature of things. Our minds think. Problem is, we do not know when we are thinking. We do not know that we are thinking, and that is what is called distraction. So there is a position, like the posture of meditation, and the legs should be, well, now you're sitting on chairs, so, but anyhow, if you want to continue practicing in your house, sitting, then the legs should form like a triangle, right leg before the left leg. Then the most important point in meditation is the back. The spine should be completely straight, erect, and then the hands on the knees. Shoulders open up the chest, not so strongly, but chest should not like slump, it should be open. The chin should go down a little bit so that the throat forms a kind of hook. Then lips and teeth, they are not tight, but they're just, there's like a space, very small space. They're open while we meditate. And eyes, and this is some characteristic of Buddhist meditation, should always be open. If you find that difficult, you can start meditating with closed eyes. But open eyes is something that will go along all the way in the different types of meditation until we really know the nature of mind. Still, because our visual consciousness or perceptions, they really distract us a lot, then we lower the gaze at about 1 meter or 1 yard from our body, and we can blink, no problem with blinking. And in that state, then, we start to follow the breath, which is like a support that we have chosen. Breath is very convenient. We have it all the time. So therefore, we can meditate if we're sitting in a bus or waiting for the dentist or something. We can always, instead of going along with all the distraction, we can follow the breath. And our minds should be relaxed, but not too relaxed. Should not be too tense either. Like there should be a balance between tense and also looseness. And so we follow the in and out movement of the breath. When we inhale, we follow the inhalation. When we exhale, we follow the exhalation. And of course, thoughts will come because we're so habituated to having thoughts. So if a thought comes, there is no big problem. We have to detect the thought as soon as possible so that it does not become a second, a third, and the chain of distraction starts to be produced. So the moment we notice that there is a thought, automatically we come back to the breath. It doesn't matter, no problem if this happens 1,000 times. The main thing is that you come back again and again to the breath. any thought that comes, no need to judge it. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant. It's just a thought. It's just a movement in our mind. Recognize it as thought, immediately back to the breath. Sounds or sights, anything that moves, smells, anything that we perceive with the five senses, they're allowed in our meditation. We don't block sensations, we don't block also perceptions. But we do not go after that perception. We don't start to like it, dislike it, and start to make a story about that perception. We simply know that, oh, there's been a cough, that's all. Oh, movement. Oh, smell, that's all. And then back to the breath. Nothing is blocked. We are relaxed. If we are distracted, no big deal. We just come back to the breath. We have that freedom to come back to the breath as many times as we want. It's not much more time for questions, but maybe I can take 1 or 2, 5 minutes more.
There's a microphone if anybody wants to ask a question. Just raise your hand.
Hello. I would like to for you to explain the difference between analytical meditation and contemplation.
Yeah. In analytical meditation, you think. There's something that you want to understand, so you reflect on it. Maybe then, because you've been studying, or maybe you read something in a book that you don't really clearly understand, you have still doubts, then you consult, you clarify, and you think until you become convinced. At an intellectual level, you become convinced about something. Nature of reality also has a description in terms of philosophy. So you study some kind of what philosophy indicates about the nature of reality, and you say, oh, so it makes sense, yes, I'm convinced. It's a point in which you are absolutely convinced. After that, there's no more need to continue doing analytical meditation, because you reach the intellectual conviction about something. That is very important. As human beings, once we are convinced about something, then we have inspiration to go ahead and to achieve that, or to whatever is connected to that. If we are not convinced, then our endeavor is a little bit feeble. So then conviction is quite important. Contemplative meditation is the art of non-doing anything, which is something that is quite revolutionary, because we're always doing something. Sitting, we don't move the body, so there's no physical action. And then we do not recite prayers or mantras or anything. We are just, our speech is silent. And the mind also is not really acting, because all it does is come back to the breath. And while it is in the breath, then it's not really acting. It's just has attention on what the breath is doing, inhalation or exhalation. We are not, when we inhale, we're not saying, now I'm inhaling. Then mind would be acting, right? So we're simply seeing, noticing that the mind is coming in, the breath is coming in and the breath is coming out, without interpretation or any kind of discursiveness. So the mind is not acting. And that is quite unique, because minds are always acting. We are always thinking. When we go to sleep, there's a few minutes, maybe seconds, in which we have a deep sleep without any dreams, and then immediately start to dream. So again, it's thinking. Then we wake up, again it's thinking. Our minds are maybe quite tired of thinking. Then we can give it a chance, to start to rest, to find that silence. Once the mind has found that silence, which is, there's no more noise. It is really like mind is quiet, it's still. In that space of stillness, that is also so helpful for our ordinary life and our well-being. We are no longer bombarded by this amazing strength that thoughts have over us. Thoughts are just intangible things, but they can lead us to strong emotions that, maybe we're alone in a room remembering something that happened, somebody hurt us so badly, and then we kind of really full of anger and hatred, and maybe we are even talking. The person is not there, but our body, we're red in color and our heart are beating. It's just a thought, So then meditation will lead us to see things as they are, beginning by seeing things like thoughts as they are. They're just mind forms that come. They don't need to have that exaggerated strength and dominion they have over us. That's another side effect of meditation, which happens, of course, if we are not so interested in the main objective of realizing the nature of reality. Still, at a normal level, it is a fantastic tool for well-being. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. One of the most difficult things for me and maybe for others is to meditate in our own homes, because there's so many distractions that are familiar, whether it's the sound of a clock ticking or whether it's the hum of electrical equipment or whether it's, you know, noise outside or a dog barking. Here it's easy. I mean, we're in a very conducive place for this. Can you give us any advice for meditating in the place where we're placed in our daily lives?
Yeah. As I said, there are some meditations in which perceptions are considered to be things that produce distractions in us. And so what is aimed at in these meditations is like a meditative absorption in such a way that even your hearing or your vision or whatever kind of dims out, and you no longer kind of perceive so much. If you're in that deep absorption, someone comes by you and you don't even notice. But in our type of meditation, the one that we practice, in which then the most important point is clarity, right, lucidity. Then also parts of that lucidity of our minds, which is where we will find our true nature. Most of that lucidity, within that lucidity, there is also the 5 sense organs, and they are like doors to perception. And it's not recommended that we should block them. So, of course, at the beginning, the clock clicking and, maybe some sound in the street and so forth can become a little bit distractive. But the only way that they come to a kind of a background and they no longer distract you is to continue practicing. It's not possible to silence the whole main street in order for you to practice. That's not very practical. And also to, to change the environment. I mean, meditation is something that has to be integrated with the environment, not to create like a bubble, because then it's not so functional. While you are in the bubble, everything is fine. But then we have to resume our daily life, and we cannot spend our lives in the bubble unless you go into retreat like the hermits and spend, there you can find a situation, ideal situation, which is recommended for people who want to develop meditation more professionally, so to speak. But otherwise, if we want to integrate it in our ordinary life, I'm sorry, I think we have to do the best, with maybe meditating late at night or early in the morning. If you're able to do that, then of course there's less distractions because the movement of the world is not happening at that time so much. No? But my point is that we should not be consider that things that we perceive with our senses should be kind of taken as obstacles to our meditation. Our attitude should be, we should welcome them. And without any kind of course, interpretation. One thing is I hear a cough, and another thing is, oh, why is he coughing? I'm trying to meditate, That is useless. Okay. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow.
I got a question. This is awkward.